Okay, so in this video, we're going to be learning how to use useReducer and context API. So in this case, I have a small example to show you. I can click open the model, I can cancel, or I can click anywhere on the black screen, or I can click the OK button. It's going to generate a random color when you click OK. So yeah, this is just a small example just to show you how to do it with context API using useReducer. Okay, so let's get into the video. So I have an empty project here. As you can see, it's the new project from React. I'm going to do a simple cleanup and delete everything in here. Delete everything except index and app.js, like this. Okay, so go to the app.js and remove everything in here, including the header, and save. And also go to the index, remove everything here. Okay, and now save. We also need we need to remove this header. Okay, let's save this and remove this, the imports, and save. Also down here in the body, we might need to give it a background color. I'm gonna say background color for the body. I want to say hash 28 and then 2C and then 34. So that's the background color for the body, same as what I'm using here initially. Okay, so let's go back to the app. We might need to style the app a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna say .app. Here I'm going to give it oops, I need to turn off Copilot. Okay, so in the app I need to give it width. So I'm gonna say width 100% and height 100 VH. Okay, so I'm going to create a component. I'm just going to call it model.js. So this is going to be our model. I'm going to create a functional component. Okay, so it's going to have a class name of model. Okay, so now we have a class name of model. We need to create something like, let's say, a context. You can create a new folder for that, but I don't want to waste your time creating a new folder. So I'm going to create it in the source folder for now. And then we're going to import React. So we import React. Here we're going to create a context. So we're going to say const. Let's call it model context. I'm pretty sure I turned off VsCode. Okay. Yeah. So context is going to React.create context. Was creating a context, a model context. In this case, this is just a small example. I'm calling it model context because it's just a small example. In this case, we're only doing a model. If you're doing something else like data or getting data or whatever, user or settings, whatever, you can name it differently. So in this case, I'm just doing the model, so that's why I'm naming model context. So we're going to say create context. So here we're going to say export const. Let's say model provider, and then we're going to. It's going to be an arrow function. Okay, and then it's going to take children as a prop. Whatever we pass in is going to be children within the model provider. We're going to return that, and then here we're going to say model provider, no, model context actually, dot provider. Okay, and then here we're going to pass in the children because we're going to surround all of our app with the model provider. So that app is going to be the children. Whatever we're going to pass in is going to be the children. And then here value, let's just set to hello world. Okay, so let's say hello world. Okay, so now let's go to our index.js. We need to surround this app. So this app is our children for the model provider. So I'm going to say model provider. Make sure you import model provider. There it is from context. Okay, and then paste the app here, which is the children. Okay, so now we need to access the value, this value here. How do we access that value? Let's say in our app, I want to access that value. Well, we need to create another function that's going to utilize the context. Okay, so here we're going to say export. Let's say const. Let's say use model, like this model, and then here we're going to say equal to an arrow function, and then here we're just going to return return, we're going to say use context. Okay, so make sure you import use context like this up here. So you import use context, and then you can use the context. So here we're going to use the model context. Okay, but now we need to access this value here, whatever we pass in here, inside the app. Okay, so we're going to use this function here to utilize that. Excuse me. So we need to import that function because we're exporting that function. So we're going to be able to import that. So here I'm going to say const. I'm going to say, let's say model, and then I'm going to say equal to use model, that function, remember, and then import that function coming from so use memo. It's actually use model like this. Remove the use memo, so it's coming from context like this. So make sure you import that. So to get the value, we're just going to console log that, okay, to see whatever is coming from this function here. So now let's inspect. Yeah, there you can see hello world. We're getting the value hello world. There it is. So that means we're getting the data from the context. Okay, so now how do we incorporate the context and use reducer? Let's go back to context. Inside context in here, I'm going to get started in using the use reducer. I'm going to say const. Okay, to use the reducer, I'm going to say state and then dispatch. I'm going to explain what this does in a minute. Dispatch. You can name this dispatch function whatever you want. Okay, so but the most people just use this dispatch. Is the common convention to use. Okay, so dispatch. Okay, here we're going to say use reducer. Okay, so I advise you to use reducer. Let's say when you have like a bigger project than this. So this is just to demonstrate, how it works. But like I advise you to use it more when you have like a bigger project, way bigger than this, which makes a lot of sense than using use state. If you have like a massive project, it's going to be a painful process to use state in everything. If you have like a massive project, but if you have like a smaller project, use state is fine. But if you have like a massive project, I advise you to use reducer. So in here, it's going to take two things. So here it's going to take a reducer function, which we haven't created yet. And then the next thing, let's say you have some state, some initial state that you are going to start with. Let's say in here I have is open. Let's say model is open. I'm going to start with false. Okay, so let's create this reducer function here up top. I'm just going to say const reducer. Okay, so it's going to take two things. So the first thing is going to be the state, the initial state, and then the second thing is going to be action. Okay, like that. So this is an arrow function, so make it an arrow function. So there's the use reducer. It takes in the reducer function and then the initial state. Okay, as you can see here, we have the reducer function, but it's empty. So this dispatch function is what we're going to use to update our state. Okay, this dispatch function. Let's say when the page loads, I'm going to do a use effect. When the page loads, I'm going to remove this. When the page loads, let's say I want to just print some text using the the user reducer. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say dispatch. I'm going to dispatch an action. Dispatch. So here, so this dispatch, we're sending this dispatch to our reducer function to update the state. So here I'm going to say type the type of the action that I want to change. So in this case, we need to create a new variable. Let's say const. Let's name it display data. Okay, so this is going to be like an action. So we want to display data. So the type is display data. Okay, so we're dispatching display data. We need to import use effect. Okay, so the type is display data. So this is going to be dispatched as soon as we run the page, but we need to utilize that. We say if action dot type, to access this, dispatch here, we say action. It comes through the action. Okay, dot type equal to display data. If the action is equal to that, which is here, when the page renders, what do we want to happen? Well, after this if, let's actually return the default state. Here we're just gonna say return state, the default state. So what do we want to happen? Well, I want to change the state. So in this case, maybe I want to set is open to true. I'm going to say return, and then I'm going to return the previous state, and then I'm going to set is open, let's say to true. Okay, as soon as the page mounts. So now I'm going to save this. Down here after the use effect, I'm just going to CLG. I'm going to say state. I'm going to display the state. Okay, now let's save. Okay, so as you can see, is open started at false. Okay, and then when the page mounts, it changed to true. Okay, so that the state changed. So that's an example of how to use the dispatch and actions. So we're dispatching this display data as soon as the page renders. Okay, and then here we're just changing the state when we get that action, and then we're setting the is open to true because we're accessing the state coming here. So the state comes through here, and then the action, which is the action here that we created, and then we're just dispatching that action here. Okay, so the type of the action is display data, and then here if the action is display data, we're just going to change the state. Okay, which is setting the state to true. Okay, so this is just the basic introduction. I'm going to remove this, and then I'm going to show you how to do something that you can do in the real world. Let's create a model. Okay, so now I'm just going to go away from this. I'm just going to go to the model component, and then I'm just going to start from there. Okay, so model. So here there's nothing in here, so I'm just going to say dot model inner. So model inner, I'm just going to give it an h1. I'm going to say use reducer model, and then I'm just going to paste in a paragraph. You can use lorem ipsum to generate some text. Okay, so down here I'm just going to say dot buttons, and then I'm going to have two buttons. Okay, so the first one, I'm just going to name it cancel, and then okay. Okay, so let me go into the app. Let me render the model. Okay, so make sure you import the model. Excuse me. Okay, so there it is. There's our model. We just need to style it a bit. Let's go to the CSS and style the model. Okay, so let's start with the model itself. Let's dot model. I think it's a capital letter, I believe. The class name. Okay, so position, we're going to set that to absolute. Left 50%, and then top 50%, and then we're going to do transform translate minus 50%, because we want to center the model. Okay, and then we're going to give it a background color. A background color to white, and then we're going to give it a border radius, let's say 10 pixels, a padding 10 pixels, and to rem. Okay, and then width of the model, let's give it 50% the width. Okay, and then cursor, let's put to actually we don't need to put a cursor. Okay, so let me put it at the top, so z index is going to be 10. Now let's save. Let's see what we got. So there it is. It's nicely centered. Okay, so now we need to do the buttons as well. So we target the model inner. Where is it? This one. We target that, and then we target the buttons, the class name buttons, display, flex, and then justify content, flex end. Okay, want to be all the way at the end like there. Let me check the namings of the class. Model buttons. Okay, display flex, justify content. That's strange. Let's do align items to center as well. Oh, it's actually buttons, not button. There they are. So now we just need to style the button. Okay. Let's oops. Dot model inner like this. Copy this class name, and then we're going to target the button within it. I'm just going to paste in a few styles. I don't waste your time, writing these styles one by one. So here we just give it, removing the border outline, giving it padding, font size, color, cursor pointer, transition, and border radius. Okay, so there are the buttons. But model inner, I'm going to target the first button. I'm going to say first child. Okay, first child. I'm going to change the color for the first child to this one here, and then background, I'm going to set that to transparent, and then I'm going to give it a border. I'm going to give it 1 pixel, solid, and then hash the green color. Okay, so now we should have there it is, the buttons. Okay, so now let's work on the functionality of opening and closing the model. Let's go back to our context and create some actions. Okay, so we have this action display data. We're going to rename this to open model. Open model. Okay, and then we're going to have a close model action that is responsible for closing the model. Okay, so we have open and close model actions. We still have our reducer function, which is empty at the moment. So let's create some functions to open and close models. Okay, so I'm just gonna say, let's say reducers. We have multiple reducers. Let's say we have multiple, and then here I'm just gonna say actions. Okay, so here I'm going to say open model. Okay, so I'm gonna say const open model. So it's going to be an arrow function. So opening model is only about dispatching dispatching an action. So in this case, we're going to dispatch an action with the type. So the type of the action we're dispatching is called open model. Okay, and then that's it. We're only dispatching an action to open the model. After that, we're going to say close model. I'm going to duplicate this actually, and then this one is going to be close. We're dispatching an action close model, so it's only a matter of changing the state. Okay, so in here we're going to say if action, okay, dot type, the type of the action that we dispatched, equal to open model. What do we want to do? Well, in this case, instead of doing all of our state in here, it will look messy if we have like a lot of state. Let's say loading, false. It will look messy if we have like a lot of state in here. So what we can do is we can create an object. We can say initial state. Here we can do our state. Okay, we can cut this is open, remove this, and then we pass in the initial state in here is open. Okay, so we're gonna add more state. Let's say later on we add more state. We can keep going with the list like that. Okay, so I'll comment this initial state. Okay, so now we have open and close model actions. We just need to change the state in here. State open model, get the previous state, and then is open open, we're changing that state to true. Okay, duplicate this, and then if action.type equal to close model, close, we're setting this to false. Okay, so now we need to go back to the app. We need to add a button, okay, with the class of main button. Main btn. We're just gonna name it button actually. Button.main btn. Okay, so in here we're gonna say open model. Okay, so copy this main btn. Okay, and go to the styles here, main btn. In here we just need to copy and paste whatever the styles we have in here. Copy and paste these. Main btn. There it is. But main btn, we want it to be at the center of our page. Okay, so that means we need to position absolute the main btn. Okay, so main btn, position absolute this and center it. Okay, translate minus 50% y and x. And on hover, we're just going to change the color on hover. We're going to change it to this color here. All right, so now our button is behind this model. So how do we access our state in the app? So we want to access is open here, but initially is open is set to false. How do we access it? Well, let's go to the app model here. We can destructure, okay, the initial state. So here we can destructure this. We say we want to access is open. Okay, we can access like this, destructuring. Let's say we have a lot of state, we can destructure everything is open. But the thing is, we don't have access to this yet because we're not passing it down as a value here. We need to pass it down as a value. Okay, in here, we destructure. We use the spread, or we spread the state in here. So let's say we have a lot of states, we spread using the spread operator. So now we are going to be able to destructure this state. Okay, that's why we're using this spread operator. We'll be able to destructure any value that we want from our initial state. Okay, so now let's go back, get rid of this. So now we're going to have is open access. I want to show this model if is open. Okay, so if is open is true, that's when I want to show the model. Okay, like that. So in this case, is model, is open, is set to false by default. So the model won't show, you won't be able to see it because it's gone, because it's false. Okay, but if I were to change that to true, there it is. Okay, our state is working. So now I'll put it back to false. Okay, so now I want to also send these functions here with after the state, put a comma, and then I want to send close model and open model. So now I'm going to be able to destructure these functions as well wherever I want to. I will have access to these functions. Okay, so I want open model when I click the main button. Okay, so I'll go back to the app. I will remove the index here. App here. I'm going to say on click. I'm going to say open model, but we have no access to this yet. So after is open, put a comma, and then also get the open model, save. Okay, so now let's see what happens. It should trigger our state. Oops. Inspect, go back to the console. We need to COG the state actually to see what's going on. COG here. Let's do state. Okay, so like this, state is open, it's set to false. When I click, it's set to true. Okay, now our model shows. It only shows when the is open set to true. But I want to click these buttons as well to to close the state. Okay, How do we do that? Well, but first off, let's create like a header, something that is behind our model, so we can click anywhere to close the state. So here in the app.js, I'm going to say dot header. It's going to be like a div, just like a div lurking behind the model. So copy the class name. So the class name is header. So that is going to be responsible for like hiding, the model if we click it. So I'm going to say width 100%, height 100%, and then let's try to give it a background color. Let's do red just to see if things are working. So there it is. There's our header. Okay. So we can set the cursor to pointer. Okay. So as you can see, we can have this header element. So we want to hide when we click. So in this case, I'm going to put background color to an RGB. Okay, so I want to reduce the opacity. I want to put to this black color here with opacity of 0.4. Okay, so you can give it a transition if you want to. It's up to you. So now I want to access the close model function. I'm going to say here, comma, close model. So make sure the naming is correct. Whatever you've named your functions, make sure you're destructuring properly. Close model. So on click the header, on click, on click. What am I doing? On click. So here we're going to close the model. Okay. So refresh. When I open, it opens. When I click, it disappears. Okay. So that means our header is working. Okay. When I click, the header, it's I can't tell the difference. Let me try to make it blur. Let me do 0.5 or 0.6. Nothing changes. Okay, let me see the color that's going to work. Let me try this. Oops. Let's try that. Header, background color. Let's do 0.3. It should disappear, right? Okay, so the thing is, we want the hide to disappear. So we're going to use is open as well on the header. Okay. Cut this. So we're going to say is open. Okay. When only is open is true, we want to show this header. Okay. So there it is. It's disappearing. Okay. So only if it's open, we show this thing. Okay. Otherwise, we don't want to show it. Okay. Now I'll put it back to black. I'll put it to 0.4. Okay, so open, close, open, close, open, close. So now let's work on these buttons here. So I'll go to the model, actually, context. So I want to create a function that can generate me like a random color. So how do I do that? So here I'm going to create another state value. I'm going to say background color, background. I'm just going to actually name it background. I'm going to put it empty. And then I'm going to create an action. And then here it's going to be bg change. Okay, so I want to change the background color. bg change. So first I'll create a dispatch function. So I'm gonna const change bg equal to, it's going to take a color as a parameter. We're going to pass in whatever color that we want to change it to. So in the color, we're just going to change the dispatch the change. Okay, dispatch. So here the type you all know is bg change, bg change, and then we're going to actually pass in something called a payload. Okay, so the payload is going to be the color, whatever color that we pass in here. Let's say red, green. Okay, so we're going to send that as a payload. Okay, so we're updating according to whatever color that we pass in here. So that's our payload. Okay, so here I'm going to duplicate this. If action is equals to bg change, okay, so here we're just changing the background to actually to action dot payload. Okay, whatever is coming through the payload, which is the color. So background, if it's red, it's going to be red. If it's brown, it's going to be brown. Whatever is coming through the payload. Okay, so in this case, it's a parameter here. We're going to pass a custom color. So change bg, we need to pass that in here so we can access this function in the model itself, because we're going to change the color. Okay, so in the model here, we're going to say use model. Okay, so make sure you import use model from the context. So here we're going to destructure a few things. I'm going to destructure that function, change color, and close model. Okay, like so. You can pass these functions here as props as well if you want. From here you can pass them as props if you want to. Okay, so now in the model I want to change the color. On click on this button here, I'm going to say on click, I'm going to run a callback function because I'm going to run two functions in here. So I'm going to change the color, change bg, let's say to red for now, temporary, and then change bg. I want to also close model. Okay, so close model and change bg when I click this OK button. So let's save, open, click. It doesn't change to red because we haven't set the functionality yet. We need to go back to the context. We need to set a use effect. Okay, that's going to change the background color based on the change. Let's do use effect. Make sure you import use effect. So use effect is based on the change of the background color. So here we're going to say state. Okay, state, initial state dot background. Whenever this background changes, that's when we want to do something. Okay, what do we want to do whenever this page changes? Well, whenever the page the background changes, I mean the background on page, the background changes, we're going to get the document body, and then we're going to change the style, which is the background color. Basically that's what we want to change. We're going to say background color, we're going to say equal to our state, and then background. Okay, that's what we want to do. When this whatever change, we're going to update accordingly. Okay, whenever we change the background color is going to change. So this use effect is dependent on the change of the background state of the background color. Whenever we change the background, it's going to change. So open, it's now red. Okay, it's not, because it's not changing anymore. The background is not going to change because we're actually going to randomize. This color here instead of passing just one color. So here we're going to, let's say, const colors or my colors. So here we're going to create an array of colors. So in this case, you can put any colors you want: red, green, whatever. You can put any colors that you want to, but in this case I'm just going to paste in an array that I've created off camera, just to save you time instead of creating this one by one. Okay, so now we have my colors. So here I'm going to say const random color because I want to generate a random color. So here I'm going to select my colors. It's an array. Okay, I want to pick the color from my colors here at random because I don't want to pick any color. So here I'm going to say math to flow. I want to cut the decimal points. Let's say a random value gives you a value between under 1, anything that is under 1, 0, 1 point something, 5, no, not 1 point something, anything that is under 1, so 0 0.9, 0 0.5, or whatever. So we're getting rid of the decimal places, and then in here I'm going to say math to random. Okay, So as I said, the random gives you anything that is under 1. Okay, so I'm going to multiply that. Let's say I have like 0.5. I'm going to multiply with the length. Okay, the length of the array, which is my colors. So in this case, if I have 5 colors, it's going to be multiplied that by 5. Okay, so so now we're going to actually get a random color. So whatever we have from the random, multiply that by 5. 1 2 3 4 5. Yeah, whatever we get from the random, multiply that by 5, and then we're going to pick from here. So here we're selecting an index. Okay, so this index is based on whatever we get from here. Okay, from random multiplied by 5, that's the index we're picking. Okay, so that's why we're doing like this. It's like a selector. So in here, I'm just going to say random color. Okay, so now when I open, click OK, it's going to be random all the time. Each time we click. Okay, so now let's do this cancel button. The cancel button is simple. We just calling the function on click. We're going to call close model. Okay, so yeah, that's basically the main idea of it. So now we can cancel. Okay, cancel. It's not doing anything, but if I click OK, it generates a color. When I cancel, it doesn't do anything. When I click OK, it generates a color. When I click outside of this model outside, it's going to close the model. Okay, so actually to make this also cleaner, we can create something called a new file here. Let's say actions. To make it cleaner, we can take these actions, okay, and put them in a separate file. Actions. So this should be actions. Okay, put in a separate file. So what we need to do is actually export these. Export. Okay, so we can have access to them wherever we want to. Okay, so now we should be able to also take this reducer, cancel this, cut, not cancel, cut, and then create a new file. Let's say reducers. Let's say if you have a massive project, you're gonna have a separate folders with each, like reducers, actions, or whatever. Okay, reducers.js. So in here, I'm going to paste here. I'm gonna say export default reducer. Okay, you can name this different. Let's say it's a different kind of reducer you're using for something different. So now here we just need to import those actions. So import. What do we need to import? Open model. Open model. We need to import close model. Close model. Oops, close. Okay, we need to import bg change. We also, yeah, I think that's it. We import those actions. We actually need to do the same. Copy this import in the context. Okay, so import. I'm gonna name this actions. So you import those actions. Actually, we don't need to in here. Now we just need to import the reducer. Okay, so I'm gonna say import reducer. Okay, so now we've imported our reducer. Okay, now save. Something's wrong. Actions is not defined. Context. Let me see. Oh yeah, we actually need to import those actions in here. Okay, because we're dispatching those actions. So now let's save. So everything should work. Open, close, open, close, cancel. Yeah, everything works. So as you can see now, we've organized everything. We have our functions. Okay, our actions. Yeah, so just to recap, here we're just changing the background color based on the change of the background color. When we change the state, which we dispatch an action called background change, which is going to send a payload, our color, our random color. It's going to send the payload, whatever color that we picked. And then if that is, the requirements are met, and then we're going to change the state. Okay, so if we go to our reducers, so here, On BG change, we're going to change the state, the background, to whatever color, that whatever color we pass. Whenever we call the change background color function, we're going to change this background color. Okay, and also is the close model. Whenever we call the close model, this is going to happen. Whenever we call open model, this is going to happen. We're just changing the state. Okay, so based on these actions here that we created coming from the actions file. Yeah, that's basically it for with the useReducer and context. If you have any questions, don't forget to ask me through the comment section. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.